I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the murder of a mom and stepdad who were asleep in their home in a very quiet neighborhood when they were shot to death. Now police believe the murderer lived in the house, the teenaged daughter. Here's the story. 17-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick is charged with the February 20th, 2025 murders of her mother, Kristen Brock, and her stepfather, James Brock, in their Carroll County home. Their bodies were discovered in bed by her younger sister shortly after Sarah called 911. Investigators say they uncovered mountains of physical and digital evidence, including social media posts, messages, and possibly her online behavior, leading them to arrest her and charge her as an adult. Sarah turned herself in July and has been held without bond. During a bond hearing, prosecutors argued she poses a flight risk and could influence witnesses. Supporters describe her as faithful, kind, and deeply distraught. As the case proceeds towards trial in early 2026, the community waits, haunted. Was Sarah Grace Patrick the grieving daughter, or something far darker? This case is it's surprising and shocking and mysterious still at this point, even after the arrest and the charges. There's still a cloud of mystery about how they're going to prove it, and a cloud of mystery surrounding the circumstances that led to the deaths here. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas, who has been following this case very closely, has been down to the neighborhood as well. Let's start here, because I think it's important to establish the crime scene and the circumstances surrounding this double murder. What can you tell us, Cody?
Well, Vinny, you know, this home out in Carrollton, Georgia, it's a smaller, more rural-looking home. And Carrollton's, you know, it's a little far out of the metro Atlanta area over towards Alabama. Now, you see it there on your screen. It's not that big of a home. Inside the house that night when the shooting happened, the weapon that was used, a 9mm handgun. Police say there was also no forced entry. That's an important part of this story. And this all happened around 1:30 in the morning. You see another view of the home there sitting on, you know, a bit of an acre, maybe 2 acres of land there. So it's sitting on its own plot of land. Now, who was home that night, Vinny? Sarah Grace, of course, was home. Her 5-year-old sister was home, plus her mother and stepfather, who we now know are no longer with us. But it was just those four. And police say her 5-year-old sister is the one who discovered the bodies, and Sarah Grace is actually the one who called 911. So that's what was going on inside the actual home where the shooting took place. But another important part of this story, Vinny, is the outside, the street that it was on, the neighborhood that the house was in. And of course, as you said, I went out there, I took a look around to see what I could find. Take a look at this. We're out here now in small town Carrollton, Georgia, where the home where these crimes occurred took place. Now, if you look down this street, this is Tyus Carrollton Road out here. You see it's not that busy of a street, but it is kind of a main freeway. Now, what you don't see on this street, you see these wooden poles, but what you don't see are security cameras on these poles, which leads us back to that question. If Sarah Grace Patrick, the teenager who lived in this home, did not commit these murders, then who did? And if they did, they would have had to have some kind of getaway plan down this street. And if they did, no cameras would have picked them up, unless you see the neighbor's house. There's one here over my shoulder. There's a neighbor right here across the street. There's a neighbor across over there on those acres of land. Unless they had some sort of Ring doorbell footage, some Ring camera surveillance, or any kind of home security surveillance, that is the only footage that would have picked up anyone leaving that February night. Now, back to the neighbors. They're sitting here. You see, this is not your traditional neighborhood. These houses are spread apart. They're across the street. They're acres apart. We do know multiple shots were shot in the house that night. Who could have heard those shots? And they were shot around 1:30, 1:40 in the morning. So if these neighbors were in a deep sleep, they may not have heard those shots unless, again, they have Ring camera footage that could have picked up the sound of those gunshots in this house where the crimes occurred. But again, this is out here in Carrollton, Georgia, where everything went down. Sarah Grace Patrick now facing double murder charges in those two shootings. And Vinnie, with all of this, you know, police and prosecutors are still pointing very strongly at Sarah Grace Patrick, saying they have a mountain of evidence. Take a listen to what police out in Carroll County said in a press conference following these murders.
So I believe in the beginning of any case, everyone's a suspect. I think I told many of you that when we were on scene that day. However, as an investigation continues and everything ebbs and flows, like I said in my press release, mountains of evidence has gotten us through here today. Lots of processing, lots of working with our law enforcement partners to get us to where we are today that honed in on her as a suspect. She has been arrested and charged now, and we feel confident that she is responsible for their murders.
So, Vinnie, Sarah Grace claiming her innocence, police saying they have a mountain of evidence. Vinnie, I'm just left wondering, I wonder what some of that evidence actually is.
Yeah, that's a huge mystery in all of this. Cody's going to stick around. But looking at what Cody was able to figure out for us. So a modest home, quiet neighborhood, no forced entry. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Sarah Grace Patrick is home. Her younger sister's home as well. But there are no cameras there. And all of these facts and these circumstances bring us to the first question in our investigation. And it's an important one for any trial, right? Could someone else be solely responsible for these murders? Not someone connected to Sarah Grace or a co-conspirator. I'm talking about someone else just invade this home, commit this murder, and get out. Is that even possible under the circumstances of what we know? Here to help answer that question, digital journalist Justin Shepard joins us, along with former New York police officer, retired police lieutenant, and commanding officer of the Nassau County Police K-9 Unit, Mike Gould is with us. Mike, I'm going to start with you on this. With these circumstances where there's no forced entry, it's 1 in the morning, gunshots, Sarah Grace is home at that time. Could someone have driven there, parked the car, gotten out, gotten into the house, committed the double murders, exited the house, got in the car, and gotten away, from your perspective?
Yeah, well, anything's possible, but you call this a mystery. This, to me, is beyond a mystery. I mean, don't forget, this crime took place, and she wasn't arrested until 4 months later. When a 9mm gun gets fired, first of all, the trigger pull is so Sarah was the only person that could, in the house, that possibly could have done this inside the house. But was gunshot, what was the crime scene investigation like at the time of the murder? If she called 911, she's the natural suspect. We know that when people report a crime, we look at them first. So was gunshot residue taken off her hands? Were her clothing taken to the crime scene for investigation? This, so far to me, is the mystery is this is all speculation. I haven't heard any evidence, let alone the mountain of evidence.
Let me, Justin, I want to play for you something from Sarah's grandfather, okay? The grandfather on her mother's side, not on her father's side or the stepdad's side, but the grandfather from her mother's side. Here's what he told Cody.
I say that the police have a number of suspects. They have one in particular that I can't go into detail, but I know that they have, you know, they have looked at this person, and I hope that their investigation turns up something positive. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going to still stand behind Sarah's innocence.
All right, Justin, and Mike mentioned, you know, 4 months of an investigation here before an arrest. What are your thoughts about someone else being responsible for what happened here?
Well, I think like Mike said, anything's possible, but what we know right now is that the case is still unfolding, right? And we only know what they have told us. Investigators seem very confident in the information and evidence that they have. So that's what we can go off of. Is it possible? Absolutely. We've seen it before where the original person, the original suspect, even the child or teen in the house was the first suspect, and it turns out that it's somebody else. But as of right now, police seem very confident in the information that they have that it points to Sarah Grace. Okay,
Mike, you're the former police officer. Tell us about exuding that confidence that seems to be coming from investigators. Like, you never want to arrest someone if you have any doubts, right? You don't want to. But are there different levels of confidence that investigators have in murder cases? And do you think what we're reading from them is significant?
Yeah, well, the thing is, what we don't know, and I'm curious why they don't release some theory, some evidence. It's not illegal to feed the media some tidbits of information, so we're not all scratching our heads. This has been going on for quite some time. Of course, she has a presumption of innocence, but all the things I hear is speculation. She smiled when she came into the courtroom today. Okay, she's been in solitary confinement. She might have saw a loved one smiling at her, and she smiled back. And then we hold these kinds of emotional. Did she cry? She cried too much. She cried too little. I don't want to be convicted of murder based on this kind of speculation from the family members. Of course, these or the character witnesses, it's very emotional, but it's just feelings they have. There's no evidence. This is just emotions they're sharing for or against her. So, again, I don't know why the prosecutor, the police don't feed the media some tidbits of information without screwing up their case. I would certainly be doing that.
All right, let's take a listen to Ashley Halsey. She's the Carroll County Sheriff's Office Public Information Officer who was on the show. Here's what she told me.
We have processed digital evidence, forensic evidence, DNA evidence, everything that we can to try to make a case and hold the right person accountable. We believe there absolutely positively could be other individuals involved, and we have been speaking with Sarah over the past couple of days and hoping to shed more light on that aspect of this crime.
Okay, so that's interesting. So the defendant is speaking. The defendant is cooperating?
She has been cooperative. Her family has been cooperative.
That was interesting. Very interesting. Justin, I think what we're hearing from law enforcement there is not so much that someone else could have solely done it, but perhaps they believe someone else could have helped Sarah Grace Patrick.
Yeah, it sounds that way based on that. And it's, like I said, anything is possible here. And again, going back to Mike's point, one of the biggest challenges that we have with social media is that people go ahead and make the details fit the narrative that they want. Going back to what you were saying, she smiles too much. She doesn't smile enough. She, cries here. Again, she's proclaimed her innocence this entire time. As of right now, what we know based on the little bit we've been told is that evidence points towards her. But I'm glad that they're investigating every aspect of it, because if there's somebody else involved and she's innocent, then she absolutely deserves to be exonerated.
Yeah, I just feel like not only have we not gotten all of the evidence that they have, I think there's another whole part to this story that we don't know yet. All right, Mike Gould, thank you so much. Justin's going to stick around. Coming up next, how important is the family in figuring out the truth?
I do not believe she has the integrity or accountability required to face the consequences of her actions.
My two best friends were just murdered.
Join me for a Court TV true crime series where we take you from the crime scene to the courtroom.
Donna Adelson hates every piece of grass that Dan Marcel ever walked on.
It's something that'll haunt all of us forever.
It always seemed like he was covering or deceiving.
This was a whole different level.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rowlands. New episodes Saturday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific.
Only on Court TV.
People are assuming her guilt, and she's innocent until proven guilty. And there are people that are assuming that she's guilty and making comments online that are totally uncalled for.
And that's the father of the victim. It was his daughter that was murdered. It's his granddaughter who has been accused of that. But that's Dennis Nolan speaking his mind to us. And if you think about this story is ultimately, at this point, based upon the accusations, all about family. It's about a mom, it's about a stepdad, and now a daughter/stepdaughter who's been accused of their murder. So let's check back in with Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas and dive into a little bit more about what's going on with this family, because yes, it's a public case, but ultimately at this point, until there's some other suspect that may or may not exist, this is a family affair. What can you tell us about what's going on with the family and what they're saying?
Absolutely, Vinnie. A family affair is the best way to put it. And of course, when you have something this extreme and this, potentially divisive, you're going to have family on one end and family on another end. Those that support her and those that don't. But among the ones that do, the man that we just saw, Dennis Nolan, her grandfather, her mother's dad, as you said, his daughter is one of the people Sarah Grace is accused of killing. But also, Vinnie, her biological father, Daniel Patrick. He spoke with Newsweek in support of his daughter. Let's take a listen to both him and the grandfather.
I know 100% in my heart that Sarah's innocent. She's a typical 17-year-old that lived like a teenager, and she would never do this. As a father, this has been one of the most hurtful things in my life. I'm sorry, but it's just hard,
What are the feelings? What are the emotions? And I understand that you're standing by her side. You believe she's innocent.
Oh, I'm just in total shock. Because she, first of all, the length of time that's passed and the fact that they arrested her without any evidence that I know of. Everything seems circumstantial, and I think they were just desperate to arrest someone and to try, because the case was open for months. A lot of investigation. I know they tried hard to find the murder weapon. They tried hard to find who was involved. They investigated a lot of people. And for them to charge Sarah without, and I'll say this, the investigator told me the day they issued the warrant, when I asked him, I said, well, what proof why did you pick on Sarah? He said, well, she's the only one who could have done it.
So, Vinnie, those are a couple of her family members that do support her. But again, many family members and people connected to the family have come out on the opposite side. Let's take a listen to some of them. And also, in particular, WJCL, a local station in Savannah, Georgia, spoke with a woman named Kristen Dowda. She's a family member who said she had suspicions about Sarah. Let's take a listen.
Obviously, we were glad that someone was finally being held accountable for this. And we, of course, had our suspicions. So it wasn't that shocking. Nothing that raised an alarm to me, just a typical teenage girl. But Jamie had told us multiple times that Sarah was not who we thought she was. You don't see what I see. You don't live in the home with her.
And you say friends. Talk to me about what that looks like. Are you guys talking on the phone?
Via Snapchat sometimes. We would call, I'd check in on her. I was never allowed over at her house.
But she was allowed at your house?
Yes, ma'am, I'd go and get her.
If the defendant can kill her own parents in such a violent manner, I fear for my own safety and the safety of my family and friends.
Based on her past behavior and what I know of her personally, I do not believe she has the integrity or accountability required to face the consequences of her actions. She has shown a willingness to avoid responsibility, and in my opinion, she would absolutely attempt to flee rather than stand trial if given the opportunity.
So, Vinnie, you have the people and family members that support her. You have the people and family members that don't support her. But, Vinnie, I can almost guarantee they can share some common ground in the fact that they both just really want to know the truth.
Absolutely. And then, ultimately, a trial is supposed to be a search for the truth. Thanks, Cody. Okay, so let's talk about the family, and it brings us to the next question in our investigation. How important is the family in figuring out the truth, right? This is what our system of justice is supposed to uncover. What role will the family have in all this? Here to help with our investigation, digital journalist Justin Shepard, also joining us. Black Ops private investigator Manuel Gomez. All right, Manuel, let me ask you, how important for the investigators here, how important is it to listen to talk to, and to get information from the family in a case like this in attempting to uncover the truth?
It is extremely important because the family establishes the motive for Sarah to commit this murder. not only a murder, but an execution. One, Sarah's mother, she was arrested in 2018 for methamphetamine and for marijuana, okay? And then she was found guilty and given a drug program. Two, her mother was arrested again in 2022 for child abuse, a felony of child abuse, a misdemeanor of child abuse. So that establishes that Sarah was living in a home of domestic violence. Okay, her and her daughter. And not only that, but her stepfather has a history of arrests from 2017 to 2018. Okay, and on top of that, allegedly by the same grandfather of her mother, which said online that the detective stated that Sarah Googled searches on how to kill and how to murder their parents. This establishes a motive and her mindset and the mens rea to kill them. This has echoes to me of like the Menendez brothers.
Let me ask you, Justin, the family, and you've got folks on both sides, the mom, who's one of the victims, her father believing in his granddaughter. How important do you believe the family will be in uncovering the truth here?
So I think the family's opinion is crucial, but it's also very complicated because, you know, they're able to, and a lot of times, tell you the dynamics in that house. They're able to say who might have had access to a weapon depending on how close. But at the same time, you have people who are grieving the loss of loved ones and might have blinders on thinking like, oh, my granddaughter couldn't have possibly done it, or, oh, I think she could have absolutely done it. So I think that it makes it very complicated. And I agree that this echoes the sentiments of the Menendez brothers very much and very closely. But I think that what you want to make sure you do with the family, what's important with the family, is that what they're doing is helping the investigation, not fueling online rumors.
Manuel, what are your thoughts about how do you figure out when the family members are giving you the truth versus maybe some other motive they have for feeding information to the folks trying to figure this all out?
That's a great question. And I think the grandfather is a perfect example of how the truth is coming out in this case. Many of the family members are expressing their opinions and emotional views, but the grandfather keeps talking about what he heard the detective say. He keeps giving the tidbits of information that the media wants, all right, during his interviews with the detectives. Like, again, them saying that she allegedly searched online of how to commit murder. And not only that, the fact that she was expelled out of high school, Vinny, for another drug incident. Okay? So we're painting this picture that she's some nice schoolgirl, okay, who looks like, you know, blonde hair, pretty blue eyes, but everybody's forgetting who is the most beautiful angel in heaven? The devil.
Thank you so much to our guests, Manuel Gomez, Justin Shepard. Appreciate your time and your insight. Still to come, why did Sarah Grace Patrick reach out to the true crime community? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the tragic, brutal murder of a couple in Georgia who were asleep in bed. The case went unsolved until the shocking moment police arrested the teenaged daughter whose freckle-faced mugshot went viral. Here's the story. In Carroll County, Georgia, a quiet suburban home became a crime scene that stunned even seasoned investigators. Sarah Grace Patrick, just 17 years old, stands accused of killing her mother, Kristen Brock, and her stepfather, James Brock. Their bodies found shot to death in bed by her 6-year-old sister. Moments later, Sarah Grace herself dialed 911. Detectives say her story didn't add up. Digital trails, social media posts, and private messages allegedly pointed back to her. After months of investigation, she surrendered to police and now faces murder charges as an adult. Prosecutors call her manipulative and dangerous, while supporters describe a faithful, broken teenager incapable of such violence. With no bond and a trial looming, the mystery deepens. What drove a beloved church-going girl to the center of an unthinkable crime? Was it premeditation or a moment of chaos that destroyed a family and left a community grasping for answers? A lot of questions, a lot of mystery in this story, but there's also been some chatter about this story. In fact, maybe a lot of chatter about this story on social media. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Let's talk about social media and what role it is playing in all of this.
Well, Vinnie, Sarah Grace is a teenager, so naturally she is all over social media. Now, she was active on social media even right after these murders occurred. Remember, these murders occurred in February of 2025, and she didn't turn herself in until July. So there was a 5-month period there where she was posting a handful of times on TikTok. And again, these posts are after the murders, before the arrest. So let's go through some of them here, what we were seeing on her TikTok account from that time period. This is one right here. You see she has runny makeup here. The caption on this one was, quote, "Please send prayers for healing and for a break from everything. I'm so tired. I should probably delete later." So she's posting herself crying online here, Vinnie. We go on to another TikTok. This one, similar thing. It's just an image, though. Caption says, "Life's hard, but at least I have my mom." Sounds like someone grieving a loss, clearly. We'll move on to the next one. This one here. She's a little more done up here, but the caption says, "It hasn't hit yet that they're actually gone yet." Interesting, so we'll move on to another TikTok. Similar situation here with the same runny makeup. Caption says, "I know how it feels to have people saying the worst lies about you at your worst." And finally, Vinny, we want to go to one more. On this one, another crying online one, says, quote, "I'll never forget her last time speaking to me. She came in my room when I was in bed watching a show, and she told me goodnight in a deep voice, acting silly. I should have hugged her." So, Vinny, those are the TikToks that she was posting on her account. But now this is where it gets a little different, because Sarah Grace starts reaching out to these true crime TikTok influencers in a way to try to bring awareness to the story. Now, I spoke with two of them, and we'll start with the first one. This woman, she goes by Janice, but her TikTok name handle is allegedly reportedly. Now, she told me about how Sarah contacted her directly, and she told me about the nature of that conversation. Let's take a listen.
I had not heard of this case until Sarah Grace messaged me on June 3rd asking me to cover the Brock case. She went on to explain it was the unsolved case of her parents' murder, her mother, Kristen, and stepfather, James, and it needed a light shined on it. I told her I would certainly look into it. I didn't have much of a reaction yet because I get requests like that all the time. So nothing suspicious. I just felt bad for her, and I was very nice to her, which looking back on it is just very strange. But then I told her if she wanted any specific photos included, she could email those to me. So at that point, she emailed me photos and her version of what happened that night. Now, once I read that, there were a few things that I thought a little bit about, but then I said, no, have compassion. She just lost her parents. This is a child. But when I read that email to my husband, he, not that he's not compassionate, but he immediately said, she did it. And he had his reasons, and I was like, oh my gosh, but she just lost her parents. How could you think that? Turns out his reasons I should have seen in the beginning, but hindsight is something different. Her talking about, you'll get a lot of views if you cover this story. That was very strange. I should have thought more about that. And then in her email to me, which I haven't talked about publicly yet, but I will tell you, she told me she did not hear anything that night. Now, I am hearing other versions of that story that she told other people, but I will say that was one of the things my husband picked up on. How would you not have heard anything?
And Vinny, that was the question I was left with once I interviewed her. How would you not hear anything? And I wasn't there. I'm not saying things went one way or another, but I do know a 9mm and the acoustics of that small house would be enough to get you out of bed. But There was one more true crime TikToker. Her handle is True Crime Mama. Now, she says she was contacted by someone involved with Sarah Grace. Take a listen to her experience.
On June the 8th, an individual reached out to me, emailed me, and said that they had come across a video on Facebook that I had posted on Facebook and asked if there was any other information that I had that I could share. And they went on to say that they were actually in contact with Sarah Grace and that they were trying to help her get more information for her parents. And of course, have no clue who this is, still don't know who this individual is. And I just wrote back and said that there was not anything else that I could share and that I was sorry. And she wrote back again on the following day on June the 9th and said, all good. Are there any people you could put me in contact with? And I just simply responded, no. Then after the arrest, I was curious because I kind of thought maybe this was Sarah Grace, you know, using a different name to email me. So I emailed this person back and asked how they were feeling about the arrest. And clearly it wasn't Sarah Grace because they did respond and they just said that they had so many thoughts and things that they had found and that and asked me to reply to that email so that they could respond later on with all of their thoughts and feelings, but they never responded. So.
And Vinnie, we see it every day. Digital footprints on people's phones and laptops and iPads that get people caught up in court all the time with the trials that we cover. So it's just very strange that all this is happening in the 5 months between when these murders happen and when she turns herself in.
Yeah, this is a little different. All right, thanks so much, Cody. Brings us to the next question in our investigation, and this is one a lot of people are talking about. Why did Sarah Grace Patrick reach out to the true crime community? Why is she reaching out about her case? Joining us to help answer that question, criminologist, professor, and author Dr. Debbie Goodman, and podcaster, true crime podcaster, and the host of the talk show, The Pascal Show. It's Pascal. Okay, great to have you both here. Pascal, I want to begin with you.
Sure.
Do people reach out to you, family members, and if they have a loved one, it's an unsolved case, have you had circumstances like that? And do you perceive what Sarah Patrick did here as unusual or suspicious?
So I'm going to start with that part first. I will say, absolutely, this is very strange. It's very odd. Yes, I do have victims or families of victims speak out, but I've never really had something like this, what's going on here. To me, this is a very strange approach, especially when you're saying, oh, you're going to get more views, you're going to get more hits. To me, I don't know, guys. I mean, for me, it just feels a little bit more like narcissism here than actually trying to get the word out to spread the story and spread the awareness on this specific case.
Dr. Debbie Goodman, what are your thoughts here when you've got, you know, it's like 4 months after the murders, no one is arrested. She's reaching out to true crime people who are covering this stuff on TikTok.
Certainly. Good evening, Vinnie. For me, this is all about fame, F-A-M-E, and if we use the acronym, Vinnie, F for family. This young lady annihilated her family. This is a vile, vicious crime. In criminology, we refer to it as parricide, killing of parent. More specifically, matricide, killing of mom, patricide, killing of dad. It represents 1% annually of all the homicides. We keep going. The A for attention, I think this was an attention grab for her, reaching out. The M for media manipulation. I think this defendant thought that she could manipulate the podcasters and the influencers who would ultimately feel empathetic toward her. She was waving the victim card and notice me, feel sorry for me. I'm clearly not the killer, so please help me find the real person who did this.
This is so unusual, right? Pascal, you know, in the true crime world, the true crime community, we're talking about these stories all the time. Some of them are unsolved like this. We always reach out to family members From our perspective, it's rare that they reach out to us at Court TV. I'm trying to remember a circumstance like that. But we do see them reach out on social media a lot, like their own social media. You know, if you have any information or they're looking for a missing loved one, that's very, very common. Here, though, she ends up getting arrested. I'm interested in your thoughts about her profile on social media, her, you know, kids, they love it. We love it too. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's just kids, but what do you think about that relationship in this case? Both her own social media and then also the reaching out part.
I think on her social media, it's clear as day to me. It seems as if she's really trying to say, look at me, look at me, look at me, but also feel sorry for me. You know, this is giving me very much trauma vulture type of vibes, where somebody is trying to take this opportunity to augment this into, I don't know, some sort of notoriety, some sort of stardom in the true crime world, or at least in regards to this particular case. It's hard to believe, like, the tears that are streaming down her face when she has the camera rolling perfectly at that time, the captions that she's putting on underneath the photos and the videos that she's putting out here. It's hard to see if this is actually 110% authentic or if she's just faking the funk for a few clicks and a few followers. You know, this is when I start wondering, has she started penning her own tell-all book already? Is that already done? Did she go into ChatGPT and start putting that together already? These are the questions that I have in my mind when I see those kinds of videos and photos that she's putting on social media.
All right, good news. Dr. Debbie Goodman, Pascal staying with us. Coming up next, if, and again, this is if, she's presumed innocent, but if Sarah Grace Patrick did it, why?
Sarah was a good kid. I mean, she really was.
A wife accused of murdering her prominent attorney husband, and the defense involves blaming her own sons?
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rowlands. New episode Saturday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific.
Only on Court TV.
Interview with a Killer. New season premieres Saturday, October 25th, only on Court TV.
Who knows what's going on in a young person's mind like that, but she has been arrested and charged now.
Okay, they're confident. They believe she is responsible. They're still investigating, or they said last time we spoke with them that they're still investigating to see if anyone else is involved. They did indicate that she seemed to be cooperating to a certain extent. But I look at this story and I feel like there is just a big piece that we're not getting of this story. Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. And I think where this may come from about, you know, what was happening inside those four walls. Has there been any talk, any information about what was going on inside that home?
Well, Vinnie, we've heard from multiple different people giving their insight on the relationship between Sarah Grace, her mother, and her stepfather. We've heard this both in interviews and in a court hearing. Let's take a listen to some of them describe their observations of those relationships.
There was nothing, you know, DJ, her father, he's a good person, and he and Kristen got along very well. And you know, they had their disagreements, but they had been divorced for so long that they got along quite well, and they were cooperative, and Sarah would go visit him at times. You know, they had their disagreements, just like any teenage daughter would have with a mother. But Sarah was a good kid. I mean, she really was.
As our relationship grew, she began to open up to me about her past and experiences with Kristen and James. One thing she said that has always stayed with me was, no matter what they've done, I will always forgive them and love them, because deep down, I know that's not who they truly are. The statement showed the depth of Sarah's heart.
My name is Ben Bonner, and I serve as lead pastor at Catalyst Church in Carrollton, Georgia. She has continued to attend services regularly. She and her family often travel over an hour just to be with us.
I trusted Sarah, and I loved her like a sister. Why would she do this to me? And why would she hurt everyone like this?
Now, Vinnie, regardless of how these people feel, we know what the prosecutors are alleging, and as of right now, Sarah Grace does still remain behind bars.
Yeah, there's some interesting statements made there. Cody Thomas, great reporting as always. Thank you so much. All that information brings us to the next question in our investigation. If, and again, she's presumed innocent, but if Sarah Grace Patrick did it, why? Why? So this conversation is going to presume something that's not a fact. It has to be proven in court. We understand that. But if she did it, why? What would be the motivation here? Here to help with our investigation, back with us, criminologist, professor, and author Dr. Debbie Goodman, and podcaster and host of the talk show, The Pascal Show. It is Pascal. Okay, Dr. Debbie Goodman, that statement that she made to someone about forgiving her parents for no matter what happened, right? That really stuck with me. Do you believe that there could be more information, something that we don't know about yet that could have been happening behind those four walls?
Yes, Vinny, absolutely. And to answer the why question, and that's certainly the million-dollar question, we could open any criminology textbook and turn to the chapter on kid killers, and one of which is, of course, mental health. Some of these children are suffering and grappling with depression, anxiety, psychosis, neurosis, schizophrenia. Others are dealing with alcohol and drug use and abuse. I think the revelation that may come in terms of the earlier statement about potentially what's happening behind a closed door, was there abuse of a physical, emotional, or sexual nature? Another reason why kids kill parents, Vinny, is because, believe it or not, they want their freedom. They feel that rules and structure and discipline is too stringent in the home, and they want freedom. And then lastly, issues about dating. You know, teenagers may date individuals that the parents are simply not fond of, and children take revenge and retaliate. But I do think we will get to the why on this case.
Yeah, Pascal, what are your thoughts here? Again, we're presuming if she did it. What are you thinking about a potential reason or a motivation?
Well, first off, what Dr. Goodman said, she just made some really, really good points. That's one question I have is, what is the dynamics that were going on inside that house? Was there domestic violence? Was there some sort of abuse? But one thing that Dr. Goodman just said that I never even thought of is independence, trying to emancipate themselves from the home. You know, you don't fully understand me, mom and dad, or mom and stepdad. I want some freedom. I want to be able to do what I want to do. And maybe by erasing them, that gives her that freedom that she's been wanting, right? So some very interesting things. But I would really want to know what was really going on behind those doors in that house.
Yeah, and unfortunately, two of the people who could answer that question are no longer alive, so we may or may not hear from the defendant herself. Thank you so much. We're out of time. Dr. Debbie Goodman, thank you so much. And Pascal, please check out The Pascal Show. It is on YouTube. It's amazing. Thank you so much. You know, it's difficult to understand what happened here. On the one hand, it makes no sense, almost as if these people were living some sort of strange life. What was going on behind those four walls? I don't know. I just don't know. But what's going to be crucial is when this trial does, in fact, happen, when this trial goes through, we need the truth to come out. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for the answers as the investigation continues.